So our outcome analysis, that the same topic which we have left, that if there is a strong correlation between the currencies or there is no correlation. Please at the back. Scenario 1, हो गया अच्छा खासा break. So now just focus on the lecture. So scenario 1, there is a strong correlation, higher net cost because INR depreciated against both USD versus Euro. Okay. Scenario 2, diversified with Japanese yen. When you actually added a pair of Japanese yen in your portfolio, lower net cost as INR appreciated against Japanese yen, offsetting the loss from US appreciation. So this is what you are, in scenario 2, when the correlation was slightly negative, you found that the loss has come down. Now, how to apply diversification through a strategy? So what is the process? So just understand that. Some students are interested to know that. Analyze the correlation data. First thing, regularly monitor the correlation between different currencies. Choose the currencies with low or negative correlation for diversification. Now, you don't have to actually get all the data to do it yourself. Ask the ChatGPT, they will give you the Excel sheet, give you all the calculations, and you know that for all the currency pair, what are the correlation. Okay. Balance imports and exports. Match inflows and outflows in negatively correlated currencies to create a natural offset. Use currency baskets. Consider using a basket of currencies for hedging rather than relying on one or two. Regional diversification. Source imports and exports from multiple regions to spread the currency risk. So these are certain guidelines. Okay. Now we come to another topic which is called operational hedging. Okay, which we have already in the process we have learned a little bit. Shifting production and supply chains to mitigate the currency, like Toyota, which they did. Advantage provides a long-term solution to currency exposure. Use case companies with flexible global operations, they can do it very easily. Now we come to currency swap. This is very important. So the currency swap is another over-the-counter derivative which are used by many companies to mitigate their currency risk. Okay, the same example of the Toyota, how they have done it to their advantage. This is interesting. So just please focus and understand. The currency swap is a financial instrument that allows the two parties to exchange cash flows in different currencies for a specified period. So this is the definition. Okay. Now you can ask questions in between if you don't follow this. Okay, it's a currency swap, a financial instrument that allows two parties to exchange cash flows in different currencies for a specific period. It's like a series of forward contracts, okay, which is called the currency swap. Okay. This tool is commonly used to manage foreign currency forex risk by locking the exchange rates and reducing the exposure to the currency fluctuations. Okay. I'll give you an example. The real world example again comes from Toyota, use of currency swaps. Toyota is a global automotive giant, generates significant portions of the revenue from international markets, especially in United States. However, Toyota's headquarters and much of its cost structures like labor, R&D, suppliers are based in Japan, meaning many of its expenses are in Japanese yen. This creates a currency risk because fluctuations in USD versus Japan exchange rates can impact the profits. The problem, Toyota sells the problem USD revenue versus the Japanese expenses. Toyota sells millions of vehicles in US, earning in US dollars. When the Toyota repatriates the profits back to Japan, those dollars must be converted into yen. Ultimately, the profit आएगा ही Japan में. Cost तो सारी incur करके revenue भी हो गया, but the net profit has to be sent back to Japan. If the yen strengthens against the dollar from say 110 to say 95 per USD, Toyota earns fewer yen per dollar, reducing the profitability. So what is the solution? Using currency swaps to hedge the USD Japanese risk, okay, the currency risk. So what is the objective and how does this swap happens? Toyota wants to protect itself from yen appreciation. Okay, so they want to protect from the yen appreciation that could erode the US dollars earnings. Okay, it aims to lock in favorable exchange rates to stabilize profits and cash flows. So it aims to lock in the favorable exchange rates to stabilize profits and cash flows. Toyota enters a currency swap with the financial institutions, with any bank or financial institution. Toyota exchanges US dollars from the US sales which they are going to make for JPY, that is the Japanese yen, at a fixed rate over a life of the swap, for example, 5 years. So they enter into an agreement with a bank that they're going to fix the US versus the Japanese rate for the next 5 years. Okay. Simultaneously, Toyota agrees to pay interest in USD and receive interest in Japanese yen. So what they do, they get all that money, okay, from in dollars into Japan by way of a currency swap arrangement, and the money comes to Japan in terms of Japanese yen, which is at a higher rate at that time, and then they invest that money and they earn interest on that. Okay, let me just complete the example, and then if you not followed, you can ask me how it works. Principal exchange. Toyota exchanges 1 billion for 110 yen at an exchange rate of 110 is equal to $1 at the start of the swap. So they have entered into the swap at the beginning for 5 years. अगले 5 साल के लिए they are going to get, now they have, what they have done is that they have got $1 billion immediately, okay, at 110 yen per dollar. Okay. Now since they have got this money from the bank, so they have to pay interest in US interest rate. Toyota pays interest on 1 billion to the financial institution while receiving interest on 110 billion at Japanese rate. So they have brought the money in Japan right at the start of the swap. So that money comes in Japan and they invest that money there and start earning. So on one way they are making a payment of interest, on other part they are actually receiving interest. Fixed exchange rate at maturity, final exchange rate at maturity. Toyota re-exchanges the principal at the same fixed rate regardless of the market rate at that time. They say after 5 years we are going to give you back $1 billion, the rate will be same 110, not the current rate जो हो गया उसमें नहीं. So what they have done, they have entered into a swap agreement. So how it works, let's look at this. So principal dollar is, say, how much it was, 1 billion? 1 billion, and exchange rate was 110. So they brought this much of Japanese yen in Japan. Annual interest rate they pay in America at 3%. Okay, so annual interest rate is 3%, which is so many dollars, and annual interest rate in Japan is just 1%. When they brought the money in Japan, they were paying 1%. So so they were paying Japanese interest in Japanese currency, and as well as interest in US currency, one at 3%, and they were paying, and inflow was at 1%, and the final exchange rate is 110. So the final principal in USD will be final principal will be again the same 110. So that means for 5 years they are going to pay interest and receive interest. Okay, at the final year they are going to repatriate back money, okay, to US at the same exchange rate. Okay, so now let's understand this more. Initial exchange 110 is equal to 1. Toyota locks in this rate. Exchange rate at maturity, even if the exchange rate shifts to 90 is equal to dollar, Toyota still repatriates 110 per dollar, avoiding losses. Fine. So the dollar, the rupee, the yen has actually, the dollar has depreciated, or rather the yen has strengthened, but it is not going to impact them, because at the same price which they bought the money from America, they are sending it back at the same level. Okay. Why this matters to Toyota? Hedge against yen appreciation, lowering borrowing cost, stabilize earnings. If the yen strengthens, Toyota swaps ensures predictable cash flows and profit margins remains protected. Okay. Now what they are doing is that Toyota can issue, now alternatively what they can do is, they can, instead of taking a currency swap, they can issue US denominated bonds in the global market where the rates may be lower. Okay. So either they can go to a bank or financial institutions, or they can raise their bonds. Whichever is cheaper, they will go for that and swap them into yen at favorable rates. So they are going to issue US denominated bonds, and the money which they are going to get in dollars, they are going to swap them into the yen rates. Even if the forex markets are volatile, Toyota swapped rates provide stability, crucial for long-term planning and investors' confidence. In 2016, the yen appreciated against the dollar, falling to 100. Toyota's use of currency swaps mitigated losses, allowing the company to report strong earnings despite favorable forex movements. Without swaps, profit from US sales would have been negatively impacted by stronger yen. So, benefits of Toyota's currency swap: predictable profits, locks in the exchange rate, stabilizing the cash flows and reducing volatility. Okay. Hedges long-term exposure, protects against prolonged yen appreciation, ensuring stable earnings. Cost effective, swaps can be cheaper than using options or forwards or long-term hedging. Okay. Flexible financing, Toyota can borrow in USD markets and swap it into Japanese yen, taking the advantage of low rates. Competitive pricing, stable profits allow Toyota to maintain consistent vehicle pricing globally. Okay. Conclusion, Toyota's strategic use of currency swaps allows companies to mitigate forex risk, protects profit margins and ensures stable operations across global markets. This approach provides a natural hedge against the currency fluctuations and aligns with Toyota's broader risk management framework and allowing the company to focus on growth and innovation without being overly exposed to forex volatility. So, this is what they do basically. Any questions? So, let us go to here. So, this is the problem that Toyota sells millions of vehicles in US and they are earning in US dollars. Okay. So, when they repatriate profits back to Japan, these dollars must be converted into yen. So, what they do is they preempt it, they enter into a swap deal, immediately they transfer all the money when the exchange rate is in their favor, they convert the dollars into Japanese yen and send that money to Japan. Okay. And from the money which they are collecting in US, they are paying the money on the swap deal when they are returning back the money to the financial institutions. So, जो sales में पैसा आ रहा है, okay, 5 साल में, उससे they are going to pay back the money to the bankers. So, they bring the money at the favorable exchange rate and then pay off this liability of loan which they have taken, okay, either by way of floating US dollar bonds or by raising money through the financial institutions. So, what they have done is basically, have you understood what they have done? करा क्या था उन्होंने? क्या करा था? Anybody? I will just go through the slides again. I'm just going through the slides again and then tell me in your understanding what has happened. So, this is a swap deal. Okay. So, they are actually what they're selling their vehicles in US, earning US dollars. Okay. And they have to ultimately repatriate all the money which they earned back to the parent company Toyota in Japan. So, when they transfer this money, if the Japanese yen strengthens, they are going to get less money, less Japanese yen per dollar. So, they are going to lose money as we have seen earlier. So, how they find a solution is that they are entering into currency swaps to hedge the USD Japanese. Okay. So, they want to protect itself from the yen appreciation that would erode the US dollar earnings. It aims to lock in the favorable exchange rate to stabilize the profits and cash flow. So, at that time, whatever the exchange rate, they think that yen will further strengthen. So, they are doing it at the same time. Okay, at the time when the currencies, they look that it will further strengthen. So, let us bring the money now. Toyota enters into a currency swap with a financial institution or a bank, or they can even float bonds there. Toyota exchanges USD from US. Toyota exchanges US dollar from US sales. So, whatever the sales which are happening there, they are going to earn that money. So, what they do is they exchange the USD for Japanese yen at a fixed rate over the life of the swap, that is 5 years. So, 5 saal ke liye they have fixed the rate now. So, they have got all the money in say one shot, okay, at a certain rate. Simultaneously, Toyota agrees to pay interest. Now, since they have taken this kind of they have borrowed this money, so they have to pay interest. But they have brought this money into Japan and invested in Japan, okay, and they are earning interest on that. Okay. So, principal, Toyota exchanges 1 billion for 110 billion at an exchange rate of 110 at the start of the swap. interest payment, Toyota pays interest on 1 billion to the financial institution while receiving 110 billion at Japanese. So that means they have got 110 billion, okay, at the rate of 110. So at the maturity, they have to pay back this money, which they have taken as a loan from the bank. They're going to pay it back. So they pay it back at the same exchange rate. So this is a swap deal with a banker that will borrow money at 110, and after 5 years, we are going to pay it back at 110. Okay, fine, because the bank is going to earn interest on that, and so bank gives them a solution that at this rate, we are going to give you this much of dollar at so and so interest rate. So they bring that money in Japan in one shot and invest in say in Japan. Okay. So this is how it looks, that they are, how it works, like they have borrowed, you know, the money. So
what is the final principal in US dollar?
the final principal paid 110. You know, look at the third column here. 110 पैसा लिया था, डॉलर कितने थे? So many dollars at 110. So the principal exchange was say how many billion it was? 110 billion. So 110 billion came into Japan at 110 rate, okay, and now they have to pay 3% rate of interest. They borrowed this money from America at 3%, okay. The interest rates in America assuming is 3%, and the annual rate of interest in Japan is 1%. So that means the cost of this swap is 2%. This is the cost which they are bearing. Again, this cost will depend upon company to company, depending upon the rating of the company, credit rating of the company. If you have a highest rating, AAA, the cost will come down. Okay, so the cost to them for this is 2%, but they don't incur any cost at the exchange rate fluctuation. They pay only the interest rate differential as a cost. So while repatriating the money, they are repatriating the same amount of money. Okay, this is the same principle of money market hedge. We'll be going to discuss examples later on. So this is what happens. Okay, fine. So
after the 5 years, they need to pay back the $1 billion that they have taken.
absolutely. हाँ, बट उन्होंने क्या हुआ कि वो पैसा फेवरेबल रेट पे ले आए जापान में, and then you know, instead of repatriating the money year on year at a unfavorable currency rate, they have brought all the money in one shot and then at a favorable exchange rate, okay, and they paid it back at the same rate. Only the cost was that difference between the interest rate what they are paying within America and Japan, which is, according to this example, is close to about 2%. Like still, now of course nowadays in America the rate of interest has gone up a bit, okay, because there are higher inflation, and the interest rate in Japan is close to about 1% again. It was almost like 0% long back. So it all depends, you know, cost of the swap will be the difference between the two interest rates of the two countries. Okay. हाँ, या जब हाँ 1 बिलियन का आपने लोन ले लिया, अब लोन आपके अकाउंट में आ गया, आप उस पैसे को वापस जापान में ला रहे हो, तो दैट इज यू गो टू द मनी द फॉरेन एक्सचेंज मार्केट एंड कन्वर्ट इट. आई सपोज आई नीड डॉलर्स, आई गो टू द मार्केट एंड कन्वर्ट. Either I use the same bank, ICICI bank or HDFC, doesn't matter. I will get you know, the rate from any bank. जो रेट चल रहा है 110, सबका रेट अलग अलग तो होता नहीं, एक जैसा ही होगा. अब ऑफ कोर्स यू कैन ऑलवेज नेगोशिएट एंड मेक इट लिटिल बिट मोर फेवरेबल टू यू. दैट्स अ होलसेल मार्केट. इंटरबैंक मार्केट, आपका इतना बड़ा पैसा है तो आप इंटरबैंक मार्केट रेट लोगे. ओके, फाइन.
सर इसमें ये जो 110 का इन्होंने रेट फिक्स किया था, ये इंस्टीट्यूट बैंक के साथ ही फिक्स किया था कि मैं आपको
उस फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन से जिनसे उन्होंने करंट करेंसी स्वैप एग्रीमेंट करा था. So that bank said that we'll pay you so many dollars and you have to return me the same dollars back to us, and the rate will be the same rate at which we are giving you. Okay, $110. उसी रेट पे ही हम आपको पैसा जो है हमें वापस कीजिए. यानी 1 लाख जितने भी, अगर सपोज $1 लाख लिया तो उन्होंने $1 लाख ही वापस करा, खत्म.
सर $1 लाख देगा, लेकिन ये जो एक्सचेंज रेट फिक्स की है 110, ये बैंक क्यों करेगा उसके लिए? क्यों?
हाँ, बैंक क्यों करेगा? देखो बैंक क्या है, बैंक वांट्स टू मेक मनी, isn't it? If you are taking a loan from the bank, a huge amount of loan, so they will going to incur some, you know, they are going to earn something from me, so I am going to pay interest. So all my interest and everything, all the currency swap agreement में ही वो interest rate शामिल है जो हमें कोट करेगा, all the cost is part of it. Okay. Now in this case it was 3% rate of interest in America, which included all the cost, and in Japan it was say 1%. So actually there's a 2% differential, which was the cost for Japan. Fine. अगर आप एक सेकेंड सुनो, आप बैंक पास जाते हो सपोज, एंड सपोज यू हैव टू मेक अ पेमेंट से आफ्टर 6 months, $1,00,000 आपने पे, आई एम जस्ट गोइंग टू एक्सप्लेन दैट. ओके, सपोज टुडे द डॉलर इज से ₹85.60. okay, this is the rate. Fine. Now you have to make a payment say after 1 year to someone for say $1,00,000. $1,00,000 आपने पे करने हैं 1 साल के बाद. अब नाउ you may pay at that time. Suppose that at that after 1 year the rate is 86.60. So that means you are paying 1 rupee more. ₹1,00,000 आपका एक्स्ट्रा लग जाएगा. So you go to the bank and tell the bank that I want to buy dollars after 1 year. So today rate is 85.6. So give me a quote. So your banker is going to go to the interbank market. So there's a big bank there, any big bank. They're going to ask the rate. What's the rate? After 1 year, if suppose I want to buy dollar from you, what rate you're going to give me? So the bank says the rate is 85.90. Suppose. Okay. This is the rate we can give you. This is the best. So they'll check the wholesale market. It's a wholesale market. So after 1 year, I can give you a forward contract. So banks enters into a contract with the interbank bank to buy the dollars at 85. This is called the cover transaction. Cover contract. And then they'll come back to me. Before entering to cover contract, they'll come to me and they say the rate is going to be 85.95. 5 paisa is their profit margin. Because they are going to buy at say 85.90 from someone and going to sell me at 85.95. This is the rate. After 1 year, we are going to charge you 85.95. Fine. और जबकि उस दिन रेट कितना आ गया था 86.6, and they are giving me this rate. The same thing is happening in the currency swap market. They go to the interbank market, check the rate, and so that means the bank is going to enter into a forward contract with me, 1 year forward contract for 85.95, and the bank is going to have a cover contract in the interbank market. So there will be 2 contracts at the same time. The initial forward contract between the customer and the bank, and the second contract will be between the bank and the interbank market. That's called the cover contract. So these 2 contracts which simultaneously run for 1 year. So after 1 year, the rate will be given to me when I have to pay 85. So this they will collect and give 85.9 to the interbank market, and both the contracts will be closed. Is that okay? Loan to liya. Loan is one. The second part of the loan was there are 2 parts of the currency swap agreement. One was taking a finance. The second was to fix the contract, fix the exchange rate. So the second part is that when they are fixing the exchange rate, and the first what was I go to a bank and say I want $1 lakh loan. So okay. The rate is how much? He says 3%. But I want the currency rate should also remain the same when I pay you back. He says then it will be 3.5%. So they do the calculations and give me a rate so that the currency rate also remains the same, and the rate of interest will catch everything up. Got me or not? नहीं, उसने डॉलर में लोन लिया लेकिन वो पैसा वापस लेके आ गई ना वहाँ पर जो है, वो पैसा तो जापान में ले आ गई, और जब उसको पे करना है, भाई अल्टीमेटली तो वापस 5 साल के बाद तो वो पैसा पे करना है ना. हाँ. Absolutely, it's a combination. You have got it right. But हाँ, एक इसमें कैच था कि आपने कहा कि आप जब बाहर बैठे पैसा अर्न कर रहे हैं डॉलर में, so you can pay from there. So that means you are still insulated because you are making a payment from the dollar itself from to the bank. Okay, fine. Is that okay? हाँ जी,
Bank has made a cover contract, but what about the interbank market? How is it?
how is it going to protect itself? You're saying that. Now, ultimately, the bank, your banker is getting protected because it is taking a, so, in the market, somebody is going to gain, somebody is going to lose. So, interbank market is taking a kind of a, a speculative position in the trade and giving you the rate, okay, fine. So that's a part of their business basically. So interbank market क्या है उसमें और जाके जब chat भी देखिए okay how ultimately they are losing, how they are covering themselves, okay. So अभी क्या होता है, देखो क्या होता है, जब आप इंश्योरेंस लेते हैं, अपनी कार की इंश्योरेंस लेते हैं, तो देयर आर सम, दे आर कॉल्ड री इंश्योरर्स. So Indian companies like ICICI Lombard or say any other insurance company in India, United, they go and take a reinsurance from the American, इंग्लैंड में जाके वहाँ अपनी इंश्योरेंस करा लेते हैं. जैसे आपको पॉलिसी बेची, आपकी पॉलिसी के अगेंस्ट वो एक री इंश्योरेंस ले लेते हैं इंग्लैंड में, जिससे कि आपका कोई वो, इसका मतलब आपके इंश्योरेंस वो हैं, बट ऑन द फेस योर इंश्योरेंस कंपनी यू हैव टेकन अ लोन फ्रॉम दैट. सो अल्टीमेटली समबडी इज गोइंग टू मेक अ लॉस ना, समबडी सिटिंग हु इज गोइंग टू टेकिंग अ, वो क्या कर रहे हैं, ऑल दीज पीपल नाउ दे डोंट नॉट टेल मी द इंश्योरेंस कंपनी दे मे गेन और लॉस, दे मे गेन्स, वो तो सबकी गाड़ी इंश्योर कर रहे हैं, सब उनको प्रीमियम दे रहे हैं. So all the people are not actually lodging a complaint. So all the money is coming. So all this is a very big market where the companies are going to gain from somewhere and lose from somewhere, and ultimately still they make money. और फिर क्या होता है कि उनके पास एक्सपोर्ट्स और इंपोर्ट दोनों तरह की ट्रांजेक्शन हो रही हैं. सो एट द सेम टाइम देयर पीपल हु आर बाइंग एंड एट द सेम टाइम देयर पीपल हु आर सेलिंग. So they don't lose out money. So they also balance out their risk, because at the same time, at this thing, so they will have opposite position they're holding in the market. अब I am not a banker, तो इसके और जाके रिसर्च आप कर सकते हो, fine. Okay, so just hold on. Okay.
The first part of that loan. So Toyota ने loan लिया अपने बैंक से, that is in dollars, right? And then वो foreign market में गया to exchange into yen.
हाँ, येन करके वो पैसा वापस जापान में ले आया येन में,
फिर वो पैसा जापान में आ गया.
ठीक है.
तो इसमें सर जैसे अब foreign market वाला concept मतलब उनको कैसे gain हुआ ये?
अच्छा, what's your good name? Niharika, just hold on, okay? We are going to cover the currency swaps. Formally, we are going to learn. I think your question will get answered during this thing. So just wait for that to be over. I'm just parking your question at the time, okay? I'm not answering it. So that will get, a lot of questions will get answered when we actually go and understand the currency swaps in details, okay? This was a case study where I have explained, but informally how the currency swap markets works, that will give you all explanations, okay? So just wait for that time and do ask me question. So I just remind me, I'll answer that time, okay? So let's move further. So now we know that these are various ways through which to hedge the currency risk, okay? So now all the internal techniques, okay? This is, basically I'm giving some examples which are coming from the study material of Institute of Chartered Accountants. So they have not explained, all this which I have explained. These are all basically research work done through the Chat GPT and explained to you. So these are what were there in the textbooks. So there's something called leading and lagging technique, which is an internal technique, okay? Because students have to be taught in a very simple examples rather than, through case studies. Now, abhi to MBA mein sab case studies hi ho gaye. So leading means advancing a payment, that is making a payment before it is due, okay? For example, X Limited imports $1 lakh goods from abroad. Current rate is 84.85, payable after 6 months. Okay. Now X Limited expects dollar to appreciate significantly in next 6 months. So X plans to pay the amount upfront. See, if you have to pay after 6 months, इसको कितने महीने में, 6 महीने में, तो आप सोचते हैं कि डॉलर जो है that will go up a lot. Either you have seen the US dollar versus INR chart, or you are expecting some kind of a policy coming out from the Trump government, which is going to further, the dollar is going to further appreciate and the rupee is going to weaken. So you make the payment after 3 months, the importer will be happy. जिसको पैसा दे रहे हो उसको तो आज ही मिल रहा है, तो you make the payment at a favorable rate now. So that means you are making the payment, you are leading the payment. Okay. Second is, this is another example, the same example. Okay. Just read it. I'm just going to pass through. This is the same with this thing. Okay, so is that okay? Fine. Internal, अच्छा ये actually क्या था कि this was like leading and lagging. So this was the case of a lagging example. So one was leading, this was lagging. Okay. Fine. This was an example of lagging the payment, involved postponing the payment. Okay. Leading was paying early. Lagging is making a payment, waiting for the payment, and negotiating to make the payment after some time. Okay. If you are able to negotiate with your supplier, okay, with some kind of a something given to him, so he will agree to that. Okay. So now invoicing in domestic currency. So basically don't invoice in a foreign currency, invoice in Indian rupee. Of course Indian rupee में कोई लेगा ही नहीं आपका, आप पूछोगे Indian rupee में आप invoice raise कर दो, because then that means you are shifting the risk to your supplier or your customer. Okay. X Limited invoices 84,000 for their exports. At the time of export, $1 is 84. Payment receivable after 6 months. Okay. Now $1 is now 82 after 6 months. You are an exporter. अगर आपने डॉलर में एक्सपोर्ट करा होता तो आपको पैसे कम आते, बट आपने तो 84,000 का इनवॉइस रिलीज करा था, यू आर गोइंग टू गेट 84,000 ओनली, whereas the importer is going to shell out now $1,025 instead of 1,000. So you have shifted the risk to the importer, if your importer agrees. Now, whether this happens internationally or not, let's understand that. Let's assume an exporter, Indian company based in India, an importer, US based company, export value $10,000. ये सेम क्वेश्चन है, इसको मैं स्किप कर देता हूँ. रियल वर्ल्ड में क्या है? हाई डिमांड मार्केट्स, इंडियन एक्सपोर्टर्स ऑफ pharmaceuticals or textiles often invoice in INR when dealing with smaller or developing markets. Okay. Buyer negotiation. Large importers may demand pricing to be in US dollars to avoid exchange rate balancing powers in negotiation. So that means if the importers are big, so they're not going to agree, they say we want in dollars, but you can always do it in certain markets. For example, pharmaceutical markets, exports to Nigeria. India is a major exporter of generic drugs to Nigeria and other African countries. Indian pharmaceutical companies often invoice in INR to reduce the exchange rate risk, as many African countries can be volatile or depreciate rapidly. By invoicing in INR, Indian exporters secure stable revenue while Nigerian importers bear the exchange risk. Is that okay? Now you are passing on the risk to the Nigerian customer or a supplier, rather than taking the foreign exchange risk on your shoulder, because Nigerian currency may depreciate or become half, okay, and you are going to lose heavily. So you say that we are going to invoice you in dollars, in rupees only, and not in your own currency. So countries like Nigerian country will always accept that. Okay. Similarly, textile exports to Bangladesh or Sri Lanka. Indian textile exporters frequently deal with Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, major importers of cotton, fabrics and ready-made garments. Since these countries face currency instability, Indian exporters prefer INR invoicing to ensure predictable payments. This arrangement benefits exporters by safeguarding profit margins. So there are certain markets where we can always invoice in INR rather than invoicing in their home currency and taking the risk on our shoulders. Okay, like again in case of Russia, we did it that we are invoicing in rupee for all the oils we are buying. हाँ जी, अब ये दो केस एग्जाम्पल मैंने बताए हैं, लेकिन रशिया भी एक्सेप्ट कर रहा है क्योंकि रशिया को डॉलर में ले नहीं सकता, और रूबल में हम रशियन करेंसी में हम उनको इन्वॉइस कर नहीं सकते हैं. देयर इज एन इंटरनेशनल बैन और समथिंग, सो दे मे बी देयर आर सम मोर कंट्रीज अराउंड रशिया व्हिच हैव बीन अंडर द सेम अम्ब्रेला. सो वी आर रेजिंग आवर इन्वॉइसेस इन इंडियन रुपीज. देखो ऐसा है, कैसे पे करेगा? अच्छा सोचो कि नाइजीरिया में डॉलर है, एक नाइजीरियन $100 के बराबर है. सपोज एक नाइजीरियन $1 जो है से 500 रुपये के बराबर है, और वो हो गया जी $1000 अगले महीने, तो उसको $1000 अपने बैंकर को देने पड़ेंगे नाइजीरियन टू गेट 1 rupee. ओके, so he is going to exchange it in his own country, so he is going to spend double the amount to convert into rupees, so he is going to do with the bankers. वो तो अपने बैंकर को जाएगा ना, मुझे 1 लाख रुपया भेजना है, तो पहले उसको सपोज 1000 नाइजीरियन डॉलर लगते थे, अब उसको 2000 नाइजीरियन डॉलर लगेंगे अगर करेंसी डबल होगी तो. इज दैट ओके? सो दैट इज हिज आउटलुक, ही इज गोइंग टू डू दैट. इज दैट ओके? सो वो हमारे गेम नहीं है, वो उनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. नाउ नेटिंग. Netting, exposure netting is a method of hedging currency by offsetting exposure in one currency with exposure in the same or different currency. So, for example, there are two companies, X Limited, which owes $1 lakh to its group company X Limited, USA Limited, for goods supplied, and X USA also owes $80,000. So, they can do a netting of. दोनों subsidiary companies हैं, so they can do the netting. एक ने लेने, एक ने देने. So they can only just, difference only they'll convert and make the payment. So they'll avoid, they can do the netting. Now this netting can also be done with different currency. For example, A Limited owes $1 lakh to its group company, and X UK for the goods supplied, X UK also owes 78,000. So if the exchange rate is $1.78, say, so they can also exchange the entire thing without having to deal with taking money and receiving money. दोनों net off हो जाएगा. डॉलर वर्सेस रुपये भी net off हो जाएगा. डॉलर वर्सेस पाउंड भी नेट ऑफ हो जाएगा. इज दैट ओके? ओके, नाउ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट वन. नेटिंग इज अ फाइनेंशियल स्ट्रैटेजी यूज्ड बाय मल्टीनेशनल कॉर्पोरेशंस टू मैनेज करेंसी रिस्क बाय ऑफसेटिंग रिसीवेबल्स एंड पेबल्स डिनोमिनेटेड इन डिफरेंट करेंसीज. इंस्टेड ऑफ सेटलिंग इन ईच ट्रांजैक्शन इंडिविजुअली, companies consolidate transactions to minimize the overall currency exposure, thus reducing the transaction cost and mitigating the exchange rate risk. Okay, let's understand through an example. Now, before that, there are two ways through which we can do bilateral netting. Another is called the multilateral netting. So, when there are two parties are involved, it's called the bilateral netting. When they are, among multiple subsidiaries typically handled by a central treasury or clearinghouse. So, it's a large multinational company which is operating in many countries. Okay, so they will normally have a head office or a central treasury or a clearinghouse which will do all the clearing on part of all the companies. So, let's take an example. Just read it.
A multinational corporation EBC Limited operates in US and UK and Japan. The company subsidiaries engage in cross-border transactions. US subsidiary USD owes euro 1 million to the UK subsidiary. UK subsidiary Great Britain pound owes yen 150 million to the Japanese subsidiary. The Japanese subsidiary owes $1.2 million to the US subsidiary.
Okay, so there is a lot of transaction happening between the subsidiaries. US subsidiary को क्या देना है? 1 million. किसको? UK subsidiary को. और UK subsidiary को जो pound में है, they have to pay 150 million yen to the Japanese subsidiary. The Japanese subsidiary owes 1.2 million to US subsidiary. Now all this will be handled by a central treasury, and they'll do netting off. How they do? Let's understand. Each transaction now without netting. अगर ये अलग-अलग करते तो क्या होता? Each transaction would be settled separately. The US subsidiary needs to convert USD to pound, and UK subsidiary needs to convert pound to Japanese yen. जिसको जितना देना है उसको convert करना पड़ा उसकी currency में. And Japanese subsidiary needs to convert Japanese yen into USD to clear off their liabilities. Okay, this exposes each subsidiary to fluctuate exchange rates and transaction cost. Okay, fine. Now with netting, reduce risk. Fine. अभी नेटिंग वाला जो था बड़ा डिफिकल्ट गेम है समझना और समझाना, एंड इट कन्फ्यूज योर माइंड अ लॉट, एंड आई वाज आल्सो कन्फ्यूज्ड अ बिट, बट लेट मी सी वेदर आई कैन able to explain to you. Just have a ABC applies multinational netting. US subsidiary offsets 1.2 million receivable from Japan against its 1 million payable to UK. So this will be done by the central clearing house. So US subsidiary जो है वो offsets 1.2 million receivable for Japan against its 1 million from UK. Okay. After netting, only the residual amounts are to be settled. Instead of 3 transactions, the treasury coordinates in a single transaction to handle the balance, reducing the need for multiple currency conversions. Okay. Now again to revisit. So these were the 3 figures कि इतना पैसा लोगों को देना था, वो भूल जाओ जो ऊपर लिखा हुआ है. सेंट्रल ट्रेजरी रोल, जस्ट रीड इट, आप पढ़िए.
The central treasury looks at all the obligations across subsidiaries and convert the amount to a common currency, often US dollar, to minimize multiple transactions. Example of calculation, 150 million yen is converted USD 1
So we have assumed that the yen rate is 150 yen per dollar.
per dollar.
So that will be equivalent to $1 million. जो 150 मिलियन येन जो देने हैं, जो जापानीज को मिलने हैं, वो इज इक्वल टू 1 मिलियन. नाउ 1 मिलियन पाउंड एट द रेट ऑफ से 0.8 इज इक्वल टू 1.25 डॉलर. ओके, जो 1 मिलियन पाउंड है वो 1.25 मिलियन डॉलर के हैं. ओके, डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? बिकॉज $1 टुडे इज एट 85 and 1 pound is at 106. So in dollars, in pounds you will get more dollars, isn't it? So 1 pound you will get 1.25 because the rate is 0.8 dollar per 0.8 pound per dollar. This is okay. Just focus it here. Okay. Now offsetting and remaining exposure. The 1.2 million receivable from Japan partially offsets 1.25 million payable to UK subsidiary. Okay. 1.2 million receivable from Japan partly offsets 1.25 payable to UK subsidiary. Residual payment, which is $50,000 converted to, अभी मैं आपको फिगर एक विजुअल दिखाऊंगा, आपको समझ आ जाएगा. अब वो 50,000 बचा है, अभी देना है. That will be converted into the pounds. The Japanese subsidiaries 150 million yen obligation gets settled by converting the UK subsidiaries funds through treasury. अब UK subsidiary को पैसा मिल गया, उससे Japanese 150 million knock off हो जाएगा. तो the final settlement will be only for there will be only one transaction involving only converting the dollars into pounds, that is 40, because the UK subsidiary has to be paid. Ultimately UK subsidiary को पैसा मिलना है. So simultaneously 150 is converted from UK subsidy payment to Japanese. So this is the diagram ultimately. But मुश्किल है समझना इसको, मतलब दिमाग से लगा के समझना. ये देख लो, देखते हैं मैं बताऊँ. अब क्या था? Ultimately this is the central treasury has done this transaction only, and this money has flown to Japan 115 because this money has been received. ये जो पैसा था UK subsidy को, ये पैसा मिला इनको 150 मिलियन इनको देना था, तो इनको मिल गया यहाँ से पैसा 1 मिलियन. ओके, 1 मिलियन मिल गया और वो मिलना था 1.2, तो अभी और चाहिए था इनको, तो 40 इनको और चाहिए. तो ये जो पैसा आ गया यूके सब्सिडी से, उसने वो सेंट्रल ट्रेजरी को चला गया, उसने सेटल कर दिया 150. दिस इज एज सिंपल एज दैट, बट इट टुक मी ऑलमोस्ट हाफ अ डे टू अंडरस्टैंड.
ये जो नेटिंग सेंट्रल ट्रेजरी कर रहा है,
हाँ,
ये अपने बुक्स में तो ठीक है, विद अ कंपनी विद इन योर सब्सिडीज यू कैन डू इट, बट द सेंट्रल बैंक्स ऑफ ईच कंट्री डज दे अलाउ दैट?
नहीं, वो आपने देखा नहीं. अभी ये देखो, see what the central agency or the central treasury, they will convert wherever the conversion required, they will going to convert. So सिर्फ conversion वही करेंगे जिसकी conversion करनी है. Either they will convert everything into dollars and then do the repatriation of money. वो अपने एंड पे जितना कम कर सकते हैं conversion उतना करेंगे. बाकी तो वो सेट ऑफ कर सकते हैं. सपोज मैंने आपसे 1 लाख रुपए लेना है और आपने मुझे 1 लाख रुपए देना है, तो हमारा नेटवर्क हो गया ना. कोई किसी को दूसरे कंट्री को, आप बांग्लादेश में है, मैं इंडिया में हूँ, तो बांग्लादेश और इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को क्या फर्क पड़ता है? हमने आपस में सेट ऑफ कर दिया, बिकॉज हम दोनों एक ही कंपनी के सब्सिडरीज हैं. ऐसा तो कर सकते हैं ना. अल्टीमेटली सपोज मैंने आपसे 1,20,000 रुपये लेना है और मैंने आपको 1 लाख देना है, तो सिर्फ 20,000 रुपये मुझे आपको चाहिए, तो वो सेंट्रल वाले क्या करेंगे, वो आपको बांग्लादेश की करेंसी में 20,000 करके मुझे आपको दे देंगे. समझे बात? ये 2 केस में तो समझ में आता है. जब मल्टी ट्रांजेक्शन होती हैं, सो दे ऑल डू जगलरी. अल्टीमेटली दे कन्वर्ट जिस कैसे को. अब इस केस में क्या था, जो पैसा सिर्फ 40,000 पाउंड ही देना था ब्रिटिश सब्सिडरी को, वो दे दिया, और जापानीज को देना था वो तो ऑलरेडी जो पैसा आया हुआ था यूके के पास, अल्टीमेटली उस किटी में से वो वहाँ से पे हो गया. तो यहाँ ये देखो, यहाँ पर लिखा ही हुआ सेंट्रल ट्रेजरी रोल. जस्ट रीड द फर्स्ट ये अब पढ़ो आप।
Central Treasury looks at all the obligations across subsidiaries and converts the amount to a common currency, often used to minimize the multiple transactions.
ओके, सो आई विल जस्ट से, ये स्लाइड्स आपके पास हैं, इसको आप अच्छी तरह समझिए. नेक्स्ट टाइम somebody out of you has going to explain to me how the netting has been done. कौन समझाएगा, कौन वॉलंटियर करेगा? आप ही वॉलंटियर करिए, ठीक है? नेक्स्ट टाइम यू कैन टेक द हेल्प ऑफ द एंटायर पीपल, ओके? आप अपनी इनपुट दे सकते हैं, और यू कैन हैव अ ग्रुप ऑफ 1 or 2 एंड एक्सप्लेन दैट इन अ मैनर सो दैट एवरीबडी अंडरस्टैंड्स दैट, ओके? तो आप अपने साथ 2 बंदे और साथ में ले लेना ग्रुप में. आपका प्रोजेक्ट यही है, आपका ग्रुप प्रेजेंटेशन यही है, समझिए. इज दैट ओके?
Sir, what I was asking,
अब मुझसे मत पूछो, आप अपने आप से बताना मुझे जो है.
this I understood, sir. This
हाँ.
offsetting I understood.
हाँ.
But I'm asking you, जैसे जो UK की कंपनी है, उसको US डॉलर से पैसा मिलना था, ठीक है? और उसको आगे जापान को पैसा देना है,
हाँ.
ठीक है? अब जो US और UK के बीच का ट्रांजैक्शन हुआ है, ठीक है? ये ऑफसेटिंग सेंट्रल ट्रेजरी कर रही है, ऑफसेटिंग इज फाइन, बट जो उस कंट्री का सेंट्रल बैंक है वो कह रहा भाई आपको यूएस से 1 मिलियन जीबीपी आना था,
नहीं आया,
वो आया नहीं.
हाँ.
उसके बजाय आपको 40,000
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
जीबीपी
बिल्कुल.
आया.
वो तब होता है जब 2 पार्टी अनरिलेटेड होती हैं. जैसे मैंने एक्सपोर्ट करा, अब क्या होता है कि मैं डीजीएफटी से लाइसेंस लेके एक्सपोर्ट करता हूँ. मैंने गवर्नमेंट से लिया लाइसेंस, और मैंने अब मुझे डीजीएफटी में एक रेमिटेंस सर्टिफिकेट देना पड़ता है एंड में कि भैया मुझे पैसा मिल गया. अब मैंने दिया ही नहीं उनको, तो वहाँ से आ जाएगा मुझे नोटिस कि पैसा कहाँ गया. अब अगर आप और मैं एक ही पार्टी हैं, हमारी पेरेंट कंपनी है और मेरी सब्सिडरीज हैं, तो बिकॉज यू नो वी आर हैविंग नो डिस्टिंक्ट एंटिटी, वी आर डिफरेंट सेम पर्सन, देन इट इज अलाउड. देन द डीजीएफटी विल नॉट रेज अ इशू बिकॉज इट इज वन आर्म वर्सेज द अनदर आर्म. अगर आर्म्स लेंथ है ट्रांजेक्शन में तो डीजीएफटी पकड़ लेगा आपको या गवर्नमेंट पकड़ लेगी. बट अगर आप सेम बंदे हैं, but you are 2 companies are subsidiaries, then you can even explore under ChatGPT and say if you are the same subsidiaries, is it allowed by the government to do that? So you can ask that also, okay? During जब ये प्रोसेस करोगे ना तो फिर आप बेटर इन्फॉर्म होकर आएंगे मेरे पास. अभी मैं आपको हम यही छोड़ देते हैं, क्योंकि आप एक ने पैसा देना था, एक ने लेना था, तो कर देंगे भाई. हम कहेंगे हमें गवर्नमेंट से क्या परमिशन लेनी, मेरी एक पॉकेट से पैसा निकल के दूसरी पॉकेट में आ गया, बस वही तो हुआ. Though it is happening from one country to another, is it permitted by the 2 governments? That is your question. Okay. So this a question we will further research, and you are going to research and let us all know and get. हाँ.
We have to notify DGFT कि ये offsetting we are doing with this subsidiary.
हाँ हाँ
ये export relation.
हाँ. जब आप जब लोगे, जब अपना लाइसेंस लोगे या कुछ आप कुछ ले रहे हैं डीजीएफटी से, यू आर टेकिंग सम बेनिफिट, then the benefit may tell you with all the this thing that actual repatriation should happen. Then you have to do it. You can't do the netting in that case. That would be the rule. Okay, fine. But अगर benefit ले रहे हैं, you are importing at a lower duty or something, you are taking a benefit of the government, then government will say bring that money. Okay. But if you are not taking a benefit, then the government will say okay. कोई आपने बेनिफिट तो एक दूसरे से लिया ही नहीं है, neither you are taken, you are not doing with a third party, you are doing internally and you are not taking any benefit, so then we'll allow you. So that needs to be researched and seen from country to country and regulation to regulation, so that his job. तो आपका क्या है, बड़ा comprehensive करना है, आपने 10 PPT बनानी, 10 पन्ने की, along with 2 more people. So this is your group project. Okay, fine. अब हम ये देख लेते हैं before we go to the further benefits of netting. Reduce transaction cost, minimize exchange rate exposure, improve cash flow management. That means there is no working capital tied up. आपने जो सिर्फ जो है net कर दिया. Operational efficiency, simplifies the settlement process, improving efficiency across subsidiaries. Okay. Now we come to the last one, which is called the price variation, which is simple. I'm just going to skip that for a mind. आपको वैसे बताता हूँ. Suppose you think that the price is, the dollar is, for example, you saying the pound is going to strengthen from say 110 to 130. Okay, so you may raise the price. आप अपना जब आप एक्सपोर्टर हो तो अपना प्राइस बढ़ा दो, अगर वो मान जाता है तो, कि बोलो कि अब मुझे तो पैसा कम मिलेगा ना in terms of say dollars or pounds, so I'm going to charge you more because your currency is so volatile. So you can, that is only if you are able to pass on the price difference, because the currency fluctuation की वजह से जो आपको नुकसान हो रहा है वो आप अपने कस्टमर या अपने सप्लायर को पास ऑन कर दो. That is what it's saying. Okay, fine. Now we come to the money market hedge. Okay, so this is very important. So I wanted to do it before with today's this thing, the money market hedge. So this is, I think, we will be able to do only this chapter. Money market hedge is a financial strategy used by companies and investors to protect themselves from foreign exchange rate fluctuations. अब वो प्राइस वेरिएशन वाला मैं जल्दी इसलिए करा क्योंकि प्राइस आप बढ़ा सकते नहीं है. एक्चुअल में क्या होता है कि यू कांट पास ऑन द प्राइस टू समवन. आज की डेट में प्राइस पास ऑन करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. दैट्स व्हाई आई गिव वेरी लेस एट दिस थिंग टाइम ऑन दैट. नथिंग टू आई मीन वरी अबाउट व्हाट इज दैट. ओके, सो मनी मार्केट हेज इज the financial strategy used by companies and investors to protect themselves from foreign exchange fluctuations. Now, you know, there's something called money market hedge. A long back, about say 5 years, 6 years, or maybe 3 years back, it was very difficult for me to explain to the students, ki hai kya? What was the need? Okay. Many people asked me this question, though of course I taught them right from the book, and I was also not very convinced. I didn't have answers. Okay, now I am, you know, fully aware कि क्यों होता है. मैं सोचता था शायद ये बुकिश ही concept है. So let's understand. Okay. Now, what is money market hedge? First of all, basically whenever there are no forward contracts available. अब जब आप जाते हो बैंक के पास, आपको किसी को पेमेंट करनी है, तो आपको एक फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लेना पड़ेगा, या तो आप फ्यूचर्स मार्केट में जाओगे, ऑप्शंस लोगे. When nothing is available, that is one condition. Then you have to rely on money market hedge. है ही नहीं कुछ, आप मनी मार्केट हेज को यूज करोगे. ओके, या आपको मनी मार्केट हेज चीपर है कंपेयर टू द फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. अभी विदाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग व्हाट इज मनी मार्केट हेज, सो यू हैव टू कंपेयर अ मनी मार्केट हेज एंड अ फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. फॉर एग्जांपल, अ फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इन अ डॉलर इज अवेलेबल एट से 85.90. सपोज 85.90 आपको $1 इतने रुपए का मिलता है एक साल में. ओके, एक साल के बाद किसी को पेमेंट करनी है, तो आपने जब मनी मार्केट हेज लगाया तो आपको पड़ रहा था 85.80. तो आप बोलो मैं फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट क्यों लूंगा? आई डू माई हेजिंग थ्रू अ मनी मार्केट हेज रादर देन अ फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. सो आइदर द फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इज नॉट अवेलेबल फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर करेंसी पेयर. ओके, और इफ यू फाइंड दैट मनी मार्केट हेज इज सिंपलर and cost benefit, so are you going to go for the money market hedge? Now it involves what? Just read it.
It involves using the money market, short-term borrowing and lending markets to create a synthetic hedge against currency risk, typically in connection with cross-border transactions of foreign investments.
Okay, so it is a synthetic hedge. You're not going to the party, to the bank to take a forward cover. Neither going to stock exchange and taking a futures this thing contract, not going for the options contract. You're creating a synthetic hedge. Okay, I'm just going to, you know, just skip all the slides because saying what is the most appropriate circle under which you should do money market hedge. Okay, but I have briefly explained two things: when there is no forward contract available, or when the foreign exchange forward contract is costlier. Okay, mostly like that. तो सबसे पहले देखते हैं हम, इफ यू आर एन एक्सपोर्टर, यू कैन बी आइदर एन एक्सपोर्टर और एन इम्पोर्टर. या तो आपको पैसा बाहर से आना है या आपको दे रहे हैं. तो फर्स्ट है कि आपको पैसा आना है, एक्सपोर्टर हो. तो हमने एग्जाम्पल दिया रुपी डॉलर वाला, आप किसी भी पेयर में लगा सकते हैं एग्जाम्पल. ओके, तो हमने रुपी डॉलर केस इज ऑलवेज वेल अंडरस्टूड बाई मोस्ट ऑफ अस बिकॉज वी आर इंडियंस. ओके, एंड यू कैन अप्लाई द सेम थिंग फॉर एनी अदर करेंसी पेयर. So since you are an exporter, ultimately you are going to get what? Dollars in India. आपको डॉलर ही आएंगे ना इंडिया में. आपने किसी को एक्सपोर्ट करा, you going to get dollars. Fine. So you bring the dollars in advance. You borrow dollars now. Equivalent of your exports. जितना आपने एक्सपोर्ट करा उतना डॉलर बाहर से बोरो करके ले आओ पहले ही. आपको पैसा मिलना है 6 महीने के बाद, आप आज ही उतने के डॉलर यहां लेके आ जाओ इंडिया में. पहला काम, बोरो इन डॉलर्स. That is the foreign currency. Fine. So foreign currency इसलिए लिखा हुआ कि डॉलर की जगह पाउंड भी हो सकता है. अब एग्जाम्पल तो यूएस वर्सेस डॉलर है. ओके, नाउ कन्वर्ट द डॉलर्स इनटू रुपी. जो पैसा आप लेके आए हो डॉलर, वहां से बाहर से उधार से लेके आए हो, यू आर बोरोड दैट मनी, यू आर गोइंग टू पार्क दैट मनी, यू आर गोइंग टू फर्स्ट कन्वर्ट दैट मनी इन इंडियन रुपीज. क्योंकि आपके डॉलर आए, आपको उनको अपने बैंक से आपने रुपए में कन्वर्ट कर दिया, एंड इन्वेस्ट इन रुपी सो दैट द अमाउंट ग्रोस. अब इंडिया में वो पैसा इन्वेस्ट कर दीजिए. तो आपने एक बोरो करा, आपने एक लेंड करा. आपने बोरो करा, फिर आपने इन्वेस्ट करा. नॉट लेंड, इन्वेस्ट. सो बोरो, इन्वेस्ट. ओके, पे द लोन विद इंटरेस्ट यूजिंग रिसीवेबल. जो आपको पैसा मिलेगा जिस दिन, उससे आपने जो बोरो करा था डॉलर वो पे ऑफ कर दो। आपको 6 महीने का पैसा मिलेगा या 3 महीने का मिलेगा, तो आपने 3 या 6 महीने के हिसाब से बोरो कर लिया। अब वो जब उस दिन आपको पैसा देना पड़ेगा जिससे बोरो करा और आपके रिसीवेबल्स खड़े हुए हैं, वो दोनों आपस में नॉक ऑफ हो जाएंगे। मेक श्योर दैट द इंटरेस्ट प्लस द प्रिंसिपल बोरोइंग इज इक्वल टू योर रिसीवेबल्स। जो आपका प्लीज लिसन, इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, जो आपका प्रिंसिपल प्लस इंटरेस्ट है दैट शुड बी इक्वल टू योर रिसीवेबल्स। तो आपको उतना बोरो करना है जो प्रिंसिपल और इंटरेस्ट मिलके आपके रिसीवेबल के बराबर हो जाए। इज दैट ओके? गॉट इट? सो नाउ लेट्स गो एंड फर्स्ट अंडरस्टैंड द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, फर्स्ट केस, देन वील गो टू द इंपोर्ट्स। An Indian exporting firm, Rohit and brother, would be covering itself again. This is a question coming into a CA exam one time about 15 years back or 10 years back. An Indian exporting firm, Rohit and brother, would be covering itself against the likely depreciation of pound sterling. The following data is given. So that means you are an exporter, you are invoicing in pounds. उस टाइम पाउंड स्टर्लिंग बोला जाता था, अब तो पाउंड बोलते हैं। रिसीवेबल अमाउंट ऑफ रोहित एंड ब्रदर्स इज 5 लाख पाउंड्स। अब नाउ रोहित एंड ब्रदर्स हैव सोल्ड समथिंग टू समवन फॉर 5 लाख पाउंड्स। ओके, स्पॉट रेट इज 106.00 पर पाउंड। ये उस टाइम स्पॉट रेट चल रहा था। रेट तो मैंने लेटेस्ट ले लिया, अब अभी इसको भी 1 साल हो गया, तो ये रेट 110 111 हो गया शायद। पेमेंट डेट 3 months। दैट मीन्स यू आर गोइंग टू गेट मनी आफ्टर 3 months। Interest rate in India is 12%. Okay, now of course interest rates are lower, but उस टाइम शायद 12% हो गए। और UK में the interest rate is 5%. Okay, fine. What the exporter should do? Rohit and brothers will cover the risk in the money market. First, the following steps are required. Borrow the pound sterling for 3 months. Okay, the borrowing must be such that the end of the 3 months the amount becomes 5 lakh pounds. So which will be 4,93,827 pounds. हमने क्या करा? 5% रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट है इन इंग्लैंड फॉर डिवाइड बाय 4, सो वील हैव बिकॉज 1 क्वार्टर का है, तो आप अगर 4,93,827 पाउंड्स अगर आप बोरो करोगे तो आफ्टर 1 क्वार्टर इट विल बिकम 5 लाख पाउंड्स। दैट मीन्स यू हैव टू पे 5 लाख पाउंड्स टू योर बैंक, टू द बैंकर फ्रॉम वेयर यू हैव बोरोड पाउंड्स। और वो उतने अमाउंट का रिसीवेबल्स भी हैं, तो वहाँ से नेट ऑफ हो जाएगा, आपके रिसीवेबल्स खत्म हो जाएंगे। आप ये जो पैसा है ये इंडिया ले आओ पाउंड्स को, और उसको 106 रुपये के हिसाब से जो रेट है उसमें कन्वर्ट कर दो और इंडियन रुपीज़ में कन्वर्ट कर दो। ओके, तो वो अमाउंट हो जाएगा 5,23,45,662 रुपीज़। ये आ गया पैसा। अब इसको आपने इन्वेस्ट कर दिया एट 12% फॉर 3 months। इंडिया में इन्वेस्ट कर दिया। एज्यूम कि आपको 3 महीने के बाद ही पैसा मिलेगा, अल्टीमेटली आपने उसको पैसे को जाके इन्वेस्ट कर दिया। सो द मनी विल बिकम 5,39,00,000। जो आपका 5,23,00,000 था उसमें इंटरेस्ट लगा 12% के हिसाब से, 12% के हिसाब से फॉर 3 months द अमाउंट विल कम टू, या 5,23,00,000 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 1.03 से भी करोगे तो आ जाएगा आपका 5,39,00,000 इतना अमाउंट। ये आ गया। द सम ऑफ 5 lakh pounds received from the client at the end of 3 months is used to refund the loan amount earlier. उसका हिसाब नक्की हो गया, पैसा दे दिया आपने, और आपके पास कितना आ गया? Now you are sitting with 5,39,00,000. Now, so that means how much you have gained with this process? You have gained 9,16,000. आपको 9,16,000 का फायदा हो गया। आपने बोरो करा 5% पे, लेंड करा 12% पे, you are going to automatically gain. How much you have gained? At the 9,16,000. The calculation is this minus the 5 lakh pound multiplied by 106. Okay. So if you take this amount and divide by your pound, receivables, so you get a rate of 107.83. तो जब 106 रुपए पे रेट था और आपको पैसा मिल रहा है 107 रुपए 83 पैसे में। Is that okay? Fine. That means you are getting the rate, the effective rate, the forward rate for 3 months is 107.83. Now, which is basically like, if you do the calculation, 107.83 minus 106 divided by 100, so there is a 1.73% appreciation happening, which is the interest rate differential also. Interest rate differential को भी माइनस करोगे तो उतना ही आ जाएगा दोनों का। इसमें 12% है, उसमें 5% है, तो उनका भी डिफरेंस 1.75 है, इसमें भी 1 लगभग उतना ही आ जाएगा। तो अब आप देखो आपको इस हिसाब से पैसा आया, इज दैट ओके? नाउ सपोज यू चेक द फॉरवर्ड रेट, द रेट वाज 106, सो विच इज बेटर, मनी मार्केट हेज? अगर रेट 108 का था तो देन गो एंड टेक अ फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट रादर देन रिलाइंग ऑन दैट. सपोज द 3 months फॉरवर्ड रेट, अब आप सपोज फॉरवर्ड रेट अवेलेबल है, नॉर्मली अवेलेबल होते हैं पाउंड वर्सेस रुपी में, यू फाउंड द रेट वाज 106 और आपको मनी मार्केट हेज जो दे रहा है वो तो 107 रुपये, आपको 1 रुपी 83 पैसा का गेन मिल रहा है. तो विच विल गो, द मनी मार्केट हेज और द फॉरवर्ड कवर? यू विल टेक अ मनी मार्केट हेज. अगर फॉरवर्ड रेट 108 रुपये का है, सो दैट मीन्स द फॉरवर्ड रेट इज मोर beneficial to you rather than going for a money market hedge because you're gaining little bit more, so you can take a forward contract. Is that okay? अच्छा, ये अभी हम इंपोर्टर देख लेते हैं, फिर आप क्वेश्चंस पूछेंगे. अब इंपोर्ट वाला क्वेश्चन है. इंपोर्ट में, अब इंपोर्ट में क्या है? यू आर इंपोर्टर, अल्टीमेटली यू हैव टू मेक द पेमेंट इन डॉलर्स, सो डॉलर हैज टू गो आउटसाइड, तो आज ही भेज दो आप. एक्सपोर्टर में आप पहले ले आए थे डॉलर. To remember, what you have to do is you send the dollar to America. Immediately आप डॉलर भेज दो. Borrow in rupees, तो आपको पहले रुपए में borrow करना पड़ेगा, which is your home currency. Convert rupee into dollars at the spot rate. डॉलर्स में कन्वर्ट करो, invest the dollars so that the amount grows to pay up the US liability. आपने वहां जाके इन्वेस्ट कर दिया, आपने इंडिया में रुपये बोरो करा, ओके, और बोरो करके उसको डॉलर में कन्वर्ट करा और उसको पैसा जाके आपने यूएस में लगा दिया, इन्वेस्ट कर दिया. यहां बोरो करा, वहां इन्वेस्ट करा. अब जो पैसा ग्रो होगा वो इतना ग्रो हो जाए कि आपकी पूरी लायबिलिटी पे ऑफ हो जाए. सो दैट मीन्स व्हाट इज योर कॉस्ट? होम करेंसी लोन विच यू हैव टेकन, प्रिंसिपल प्लस इंटरेस्ट बिकम्स योर कॉस्ट ऑफ इंपोर्ट्स. सो दैट विल बी द रेट. फिर कंपेयर करो उसको फॉरवर्ड रेट से, कौन सा बेटर है, हेजिंग और मनी मार्केट. अब इसको आप देखते हैं, इसका एग्जाम्पल. Okay, so there is a company, A Limited of UK has imported some chemicals worth US dollar $3,64,897. इतने डॉलर का उन्होंने chemicals. This is the last question we are doing, okay? Fine. And then some question answer, then we'll be closing it. From one of the US suppliers. This amount payable in 6 months' time. The relevant spot rates and forward rates are given to you. Spot rate USD 1.156. That means this rate is what? This rate is that 1 pound is equal to so many dollars. 6 months rate is $1 is equal to, again this is a CA question, so they are not given. तो people have to assume कि ये रेट यही है क्योंकि डॉलर में ज़्यादा एक पाउंड में ज़्यादा डॉलर्स आते हैं. सो द रेट इज लाइक दिस, दैट 1 pound is equal to so many dollars. The borrowing rates in UK and US are 7% and 6% respectively, and deposit rates are 5.8 to 4.5%. Okay. I know whether I have, just let me check. हाँ, रिकॉर्ड हो रहा था, मैं सोचा रिकॉर्डिंग मैंने भूल गया. So these are the rates given. The lending and borrowing rates are given, investing rates are given. The company has two choices: take a forward cover or take a money market cover. Which of the alternatives is preferable by the company? So you have to do the calculations for both. Okay. First, A Limited. अच्छा, ये जो है the same question I've put in a box manner. The same question. Okay. This is a question only. Just go through the question. Just run through the mind in your mind. What is the question? Is that clear? जब करेंगे तो सेम वी कैन गो बैक एंड ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंड थिंग. ओके, पहले देखते हैं फॉरवर्ड कवर. द अमाउंट पेबल इन 6 months टाइम इज हाउ मच? $3,64,897. 6 months फॉरवर्ड रेट हमें देखना है, वो दिया हुआ है 1 pound इज इक्वल टू सो मेनी डॉलर्स. बट वॉट वी नीड डॉलर्स, बट द रेट इज इन पाउंड्स, सो वी नीड टू कन्वर्ट देम. तो हमने रेट कन्वर्ट कर दिया. यू कैन डू द कन्वर्जन, सिंपल आपने करा हुआ. बिड विल बिकम आस्क, आस्क विल बिकम बिड, वन रेसिप्रोकल हो जाएगा. तो ये हो गया. ओके, नाउ सिंस यू आर एन इंपोर्टर, सो द आस्क रेट इज एप्लीकेबल 0.64704. यू मल्टीप्लाई, सो दैट मीन्स दिस मच ऑफ पाउंड्स यू आर गोइंग टू स्पेंड. इज दिस क्लियर? आपको कितने पाउंड लगेंगे? 2,36,103. यू आर अ ब्रिटिश गाय एंड यू आर गोइंग टू स्पेंड 2,36,000 36,103 pounds looking at the exchange rates. Is that clear, everyone? किसी को नहीं समझ आया, please ask. How what we have done? Because the rates are given in 1 pound is equal to so many dollars, so we convert that $1 is equal to so many pounds. There is a simple mathematics that we will take a reciprocal of both the things. So 1 divided by 1.5609 will become 0.6065, and 1 divided by 1.5455 will become 0.6. So this is the bid rate, this is the ask rate. For an importer, the ask rate is relevant because he is going to buy dollars. Okay, this is for selling dollars, this is for buying dollars. So he is going to buy. He's going to, what he's going to do, he's going to buy this thing. So he's going to buy pounds, okay. So that means the amount is payable in pounds. So this will be 3,64,897 into 0.64704. So it will come to, and the formula is given here, okay. So it comes to 2,36,103 pounds. Is that clear? Now we look at the money market hedge. Agar money market hedge better hai, so we'll go for the money market hedge. Otherwise we'll stick with this. Now in case of imports, the money has to flow abroad. Borrow in pounds. What is the home currency? Pound. So you borrow in pounds and invest in US. Okay. Borrow in pounds, home currency. Convert the pounds into the dollars at the spot rates and invest that in dollars so that the amount grows to pay off the US liability. Home loan plus the principal plus interest become your cost. Then you compare this cost with your forward and find which is better. Okay. So amount, now let's start the process. Amount payable after 6 months, how much? 3,64,897. Deposit, what is, now we have to move from the backwards here. अब deposit rates किसने हैं? 4.5%. वहाँ तो आपने invest करना है ना, borrow कहाँ करना है अपनी home currency में, pound में. तो पहले आप decide करो आपने कितना पैसा आप US dollar में आपको borrow करना है. In England, okay. So that means you should invest 3,56,000 in America, so that it will grow to 3,64,000 because the deposit rate in America is 4.5%. तो इसका मतलब आपको इतना पैसा होना चाहिए आपके पास. ये तो डॉलर में है, लेकिन आपको तो बोरो करना है पाउंड में. सो यू जस्ट गो बैक एंड बोरो इन पाउंड्स एट 7%. ओके, वहाँ रेट इतना है. सो हाउ मच? $3,56 equivalent to pounds. Okay, so the spot rate of 1 pound is given, so you convert into dollars and use the ask rate again. So that means you have to borrow this much pounds. How many? 2,28,512 pounds. इतने pound borrow करने पड़ेंगे. कितने पे? 7% में. So interest 7%. So interest comes to 7,998. So principal plus interest will come to 2,36,000. So this is your cost. So this is your cost. Now compare the two, money market and the forward. So money market is seems to be महंगा. Money market महंगा है ना. Forward current is सस्ता. The company should take a forward cover to hedge.